Welcome back, Leafs fans. Welcome back, Game Over friends. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Thabians. If it is your first time here, welcome to Game Over Toronto. If it is your 100th time here, welcome. Welcome back. Happy to have you. It is Lauren on tonight. We have Armaan Panthiki with me. The Leafs decide to go to the shootout again for the third time in 21 games, which has to be the most that they've gone to the shootout in recent memory, at least, or this early in the season. They do come out with the win, thank goodness. Mitch Bubble Boy Marner having the best night of his season by far tonight. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Zadorov trade later on. We're going to take your questions, but first, we are going to talk about the game. Armaan, it felt a little bit like tonight's game was. It felt like all Leafs fans were saying, I just want the Leafs to show up on time, but it was like the cursed monkey paw that was curling over on itself. And it was like, oh, so we're going to play the game backwards. Instead of the
Yeah,
Leafs not showing up until 30 minutes left in the game, they're going to play great for the first 25. And then.
yeah. They're never a dull team, eh? Like just always something going on. Honestly, the first 20 minutes though, that was like the best first period I think they played all season.
Yeah.
Like just completely controlled play.
Commanding
But
lead.
yeah,
It very easily could have been 3-0 by the end of the first.
yeah, it was
For
pretty
sure.
much the exact opposite as the Florida game.
Yes.
Where
Yep.
yeah, it was like literally the exact opposite game. But we got both wins, so a point is a point, or 2 points are 2 points.
Yeah, or as someone at the very beginning before we actually went live, because we do watch the chat before it goes live. A win is a win is a win, which is absolutely right. If you are just joining us, welcome to Game Over. My name is Lauren. Over here on the other beautiful hand side of the screen, we have Armaan. You are on Game Over by SDPN. We're happy to have you. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe. So obviously, the first period, 5 power plays. Half the period spent on special teams, but the Leafs actually, thank goodness, even though they take the first penalty, we'll talk about that. The Leafs do score first, but McCabe taking him down, Leafs legend Jared McCann.
Oh gosh.
3 minutes into the game, the Leafs actually killed that off, thank goodness. And then the Leafs get a power play. And it sort of the first half hour of the game, they were trading penalties like nobody's business. And for Mitch Marner to come out and he didn't, we all thought, we were all hoping he was going to get the game winner last game, even though it doesn't count as a game winning goal. For him to come out and play the way that he did with the bubble as opposed to the cage, he may never take the bubble off again.
Yeah, easily his best game of the season. Obviously, if you score a hat trick, you got a pretty good game going. Last game, Fuad and I were kind of talking about how Matthews and Marner were struggling, and they were both pointless, I think, in the past 3 games. And I brought up that these guys are elite players; they're going to find their game, and it really did not take Marner very long. And yeah, there's a reason they get paid the way they do, and obviously bad stretches happen, but when they go, they're elite. Like these guys are probably some of the best players in the league. So yeah, Marner just was incredible tonight, and it was right from the first shift too. Like he was flying out there, and yeah, it's good to see because I know that a lot of people were down on him, especially these past few games. So yeah,
And even though he didn't score last game, he had that ridiculous hit in the
yeah,
other end, and it was
yeah,
like I didn't even know he was capable of doing that because he does it so rarely. And it felt like after the injury, he was kind of fed up with Florida's crap a little bit and was giving it back. And even though he didn't end up scoring, it really felt like he was super motivated in this game. Like he
yeah,
was skating harder, he was skating faster, he was winning a lot of his puck battles, he was getting in shooting lanes, he was just kind of everywhere. Like just kind of everywhere, and it was so good to see. And he just looked so happy when that first goal went in, and the second
yeah,
goal in the second period as well. Like it seemed like the more he played, the better he was playing, which is just a breath of relief. Not even fresh
yeah,
air, just relief. Even though
yeah,
Matthews didn't score tonight, and he's what now, goalless in 9. As long as
yeah. It's been a while.
he's assisting on Mitch Marner. As long as one of them is scoring, I don't really care which one is scoring because they're both
Yeah,
getting points. It's fine.
yeah. And that first power play goal was a thing of that perfectly executed,
Yep.
like really perfectly executed. And Tavares doesn't get an assist on that, but the work he did, because I think it was Marner and Tavares were up against Alexiak and I think it was Adam Larson in a puck
Yep.
battle. And those are two big defensemen.
Both over
and
6'4".
Yeah, it was a puck battle along the boards, and Tavares came out with the puck, laid it beautifully to Austin Matthews, who sends it to the point to William Nylander, and like Mitch Marner had a wide open net. He could have been the worst player in the league, and he was scoring that. Like that was a perfect pass by Willie, and it's just a perfectly executed play by our top power play unit, and like just like really, really, really good start to the game, and McCann drew the first penalty, and he played a big factor in this game.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will talk about him later, but as the game went on, I was just thinking to myself, we don't have Justin Hall, we don't have Alex Kerfoot. Damn, would McCann be nice to have right now?
It's like they start off the game
so
and they're
sad.
like, 40 goal scorer Jared McCann, and I'm just like, fuck off. Like, it's so brutal. It is so brutal.
It's incredibly brutal, and like the Kraken aren't doing too hot right now.
No.
And it's majorly due to the fact that their on-ice shooting percentage is like way worse than last year. Like last year they were finishing on so many more shots. I think they were first in the league in shooting percentage last year, and now they're down to like 25th. And a big part of that was Jared McCann. I think I don't know what he's shooting. It's still a high number, but he shot like 25% last year. And so going into this game, I was like thinking to myself, I was like, okay, he's regressing to the mean. And then I was just thinking to myself before the game, I was like, yeah, no, he's definitely scoring.
Yeah.
There's no chance. There's no chance he's not scoring. He's had a not a tough year, but he's just finishing less, and going up against the Leafs. Yeah, he's potting at least a couple.
Yeah.
And
Leafs legend Jared McCann.
Yeah.
The greatest Leaf that never was. He was. It's weird, eh? He was like a Leaf for what, like a week?
Yeah, it was something like a week. And
it was like a week and a half. Never played, never got a number, nothing like that. I know. I know.
Like when we traded
well, let's not fall into this. We got to keep talking about the game. We'll talk about this later. Because I see you and I both like holding hands and sliding down the slide. So we need to let's rein it in. We'll get back to McCann in the second half. We have to talk about how many penalties there were in the first period. There was 3 penalties against Seattle, and there was 2 penalties against the Leafs. It was really so the Leafs take a penalty first, and then the Kraken take 2 penalties, and then the Leafs take another penalty, and then they actually finish the first period. The Leafs finish the first period on the power play, and they have a 4-on-4 opportunity. Neither team capitalizes, which honestly it's pretty good. Grubauer had a ridiculous save on William Nylander like halfway through the first. Oh my goodness! Right
after
that
the poke check.
Yes.
Where Willie was in pretty much alone.
Yep. Yeah. It was rough. But we end the first period. The Leafs are up 1-0, and like we said at the beginning, it very easily could have been 3-0. Grubauer was very good, and the Leafs hit a post more than once, and it felt like the game was gonna be a good game for Leafs fans, and just like, okay, I can watch this and just feel okay about it. They, even at the beginning of the second period, right? 21 seconds left. Marner actually scores as the power play is expiring. The rest of the goals for basically the rest of the game, every single goal was top shelf.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, there was no goal that I think could have been stopped by either goalie. It was just really phenomenal.
Unless
finishing.
you're Dennis Hildeby or who's another really tall goalie, where they're like 6'8" and they just cover the top of the net.
Yeah, I mean that's the way goalies are trending now. Anyways, like there's very few goalies that are smaller than like I think Pecorine, or no, was it Pecorine? UC Saros, one of them.
No,
one of the
Saros is little. Saros is little.
Saros is little. Yeah, that he's one of the few little goalies left, and but
he's also not playing very well. He's on my fantasy team.
I have Tristan Jarry on my fantasy team, and he scored a goal. Did you know that today?
You
10 minutes ago.
And that's great for you. That's great for you, Armaan.
It doesn't show up in my fantasy team.
Oh, really?
They don't count goalie goals, but it is what it is.
That's criminal.
The first period was excellent, and as you mentioned, special teams played a huge factor into it. We scored a power play goal, obviously, but I want to note that the PK has been really, really good lately, and in that first period specifically,
it was great. I
thought they were excellent. They were very aggressive to the point, and they were forcing really bad passes where the Kraken ended up clearing the zone themselves just from a bad pass to the point. That faltered as the game went on,
Yeah.
I thought. And I think, I believe they scored a power play goal in the second. Am I mistaken in that? The first McCann goal?
Yeah, the McCann goal.
I'm not sure if it was on a power play, but I thought the first period
it was on the Lagesson trip. The Lagesson trip was the power play he scored in. That was the power play. That was the penalty that the Leafs took right after their power play ended. The Lagesson trip, and then the Seattle literally went on the power play as the Leafs were announcing the Marner goal, essentially, because of course, right? And then another 4-on-4. There was that big scrum, the scrum between Benoit and Alexiak. Seattle takes another hooking penalty. The Leafs take another hooking penalty. There was hooking penalties left, right, and center tonight. Joseph Woll, the more the game went on, the better he played, even though he did let in, obviously, more goals as the game went on. He looked really good tonight. He was excellent. If Marner didn't score as many goals as he did, ideally, you don't want your goalie to let in 3, right? In a perfect world, that doesn't happen, but realistically, unless you have your hand up by your ear for the whole game, sometimes people get top cheddar, especially the McCann goal. Like, he didn't see it. It was quite the snapshot. Like, it was a good goal. And it was a goal where I just, you close your eyes and you just wonder what it would be like if he had just stayed as a Leaf, if they had covered him instead of Joseph Woll. No, I know. I'm like pulling you down the slide. God damn it. And then
it was a rocket though. McCann, that was a perfect shot.
It was a great goal. And then Marner hat trick, the breakaway goal with 3:59 to go in the second period. And then a big save by Joseph Woll to close out the second period. The Leafs go into the second intermission up 3-1. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I was fat and happy and like kind of scrolling on my phone at the end of the period.
Yeah.
I wasn't
The Kraken
really
did play a much
notes.
better period in the second.
Yes. Yeah, they won the second period for sure.
But it was still, like, I wouldn't say, like, they controlled very intensely. I thought the McCann goal was obviously good, but I thought the Leafs PK faltered there quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as aggressive, and it sort of came a little too easy. But credit to the Kraken there, because I think they did a really good job on that power play.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the Marner goal, the broadcast said that there were, I think, 9 times that the Leafs have allowed a goal within 2 minutes of scoring their own. And then right after they said that, I think it was 9 times in 20 games. It's insane. But right after they said that, I think Robertson was the guy, Nick Robertson, who failed to get the puck in deep. And it was a turnover, and it resulted in, I would say, like a minute or more of prolonged defensive zone time where the Kraken got a few chances. And last game, we saw Keefe yelling at Bertuzzi, and then after the game, he kind of came out and said it was because he didn't get the puck in deep, and right after scoring a goal. And it's the same thing. So obviously, this is something that's on Keefe's mind, and you saw it after when they showed Keefe talking to Nick Robertson. He was pretty much saying like, "Hey, that shift is on you.
Yeah,
that defensive zone time was all on you." And Nick Robertson does have to. Now, he's obviously a young player. Mistakes are going to happen.
Sure.
But that is puck management where you kind of need to trust your players to get that puck in deep, because otherwise you're losing momentum. And even just a defensive zone shift is losing momentum when you just scored a goal. Like, you're just giving them too much. But overall,
and it's only it's only the end of November, but like shifts like that are series changers in the playoffs. And I know everybody's going to say it's too early, but it's literally little things like that, because, you talked about, and we've both said so far tonight, that the Leafs PK so far, at least in the last couple of games, and even at the beginning of this game, has been very good, which is great, because for a while there, they could not clear the zone in their own end to save their life. And it was so frustrating to watch. And it feels a little bit like some of those bad habits are starting to sneak up, where there was more than 2 occasions tonight where the Leafs were headed in their own end for more than a minute and a half. If we're including overtime, then it was
that overtime
like
Matthews
2 minutes.
There for like
oh my
2.5 minutes.
Yes.
Oh God.
And the inability to close the gap, and as you play if you know hockey, the more exhausted that you get. So if you don't clear the zone in essentially the first 50 seconds, you're hoping for them to accidentally clear the zone, or your goalie gets a save and he holds the puck.
And freezes it. Yeah.
Yes, because once they start cycling it back and forth, even though there's only 3 players and there's more space, the fact of the matter is, the longer you're out there, the more tired that you are. And it's rearing its ugly head on the PK earlier in the game. And then it did it again in overtime. Thank goodness Joseph Woll is how good he is. Okay? Thank goodness he played as well as he did tonight, because the last couple games, the Leafs have hung him out to dry. They have allowed over 65 shot attempts in the last 2 games that he started, and it's just not good enough. There's no reason that the Leafs should have almost lost this game.
Yeah, when you're up 3-1, and we'll get into the third period, but when you're up 3-1, that should be a game, and 1 period left, that should be a game that is pretty easy to close out.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't even think the Leafs played all that poorly.
No.
But when the Kraken did score their 2 goals, the Leafs were just caught way too soft on the puck. And we'll get into those goals, but like Tolvanen's goal, the 3-2 goal.
Yeah.
Which happened, I don't know when in the third period. I think 6 minutes in.
6 minutes and 15 seconds in. Top cheddar.
The Leafs just get caught playing way too soft. Yep. He goes right past Kampf, who just stops skating after he does a weak stick check, and then Rielly is way too far back. There's no gap control.
Yeah.
He doesn't stick check the shot, and it's a prime area. It's a dangerous area, and you're giving it to a pretty good shooter in Tolvanen. Like that's not a shot that should ever even happen. You know, like that's very close to the net to allow a clean shot like that. And so I was really disappointed in the defensive structure there, because that should not. You need to play it tighter, especially if you're up 2 goals. Like, that's the point where I expect the most commitment to playing a defensive game. And on that goal, I thought we were soft. And then on Jared McCann's the 3-3 goal, Benoit is checking. I think it was who was it? Alex Wennberg,
he was on the other side of the ice. Like, that should have been Brody paying attention, and he just didn't see McCann coming. Like, McCann came in off the bench, and that was it.
Brody was in no man's land.
Yeah.
He wasn't even.
You were just standing in front of the goal.
He missed the assignment, but when Benoit was attacking, I think it was Alex Wennberg, he cross-checks him a couple times, but then when he cross-checks him, he gets like pushed back a little, and it fully allows Wennberg all the time in the day to turn around and get a clean pass off.
Yep, and wait for McCann to get into position.
Yeah, it's just not something that we can allow.
Yeah.
That shot attempt shouldn't even be there.
Yeah.
Because that should have been cleaned up well before, because Benoit should have stayed close to his man.
Yes.
The fact that it was such an easy pass to make and McCann was so open, like, Seattle has some good shooters. They might not be doing all too hot in shooting percentage right now, but that is going to regress to the mean. They have good shooters. And Jared McCann and Eli Tolvanen, all their goal scorers today, are snipers.
Yep.
They can score.
Yep. There's a reason they got to the second round last year.
Yeah, you got to be aware of who's on the ice.
Yeah.
And those 2 goals in the third period were really disappointing for me, because I think defensively we were having a pretty solid game up until that point. And we just left Woll completely out to dry, and they made no mistake. Woll didn't have a chance.
No, they hung him out to dry tonight, unfortunately, you know, and thank goodness he played as well as he did, because if another one of our goalies in the last 4 years is in net, we probably lose the game. Realistically.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so hard to not, because they did play well defensively at the beginning of the game, but then it's like, what happened? And
it just continuously
it was kind of anomalistic.
Throughout.
Like, it just kind of came from nowhere, because the beginning of the game, they looked really good. Even into the second period, even at the end of the second, like, did they win the period? No, but they were doing pretty well. And it was just, you know, a couple of mistakes here and there, and they get scored on, and thank goodness Joseph Woll is as good as he is. And also, I see you all in the chat. Thank you. This is a friend of mine.
The shirt?
Yes, the Joe Ferguson, the Flow Buds shirt. You can buy it on Etsy. I put the link in the chat if you want to hit him up. Please make sure, if you're going to buy this shirt, buy it from Flow Buds. Don't buy any of the knockoffs. He made this art, and I know Joe. We like have a group chat, and I actually saw this before it came out, and it was kind of cool to be a part of it. So yeah, thank goodness. I'm glad that this shirt actually literally came in today. I saw it, and I haven't streamed in like a week and a half. I was very glad that it came in because the last couple of games, has been the best player on the Leafs every game. Don't get me wrong. I know Mitch Marner got a hat trick tonight, and I'm sure he got the belt.
Hat trick and the shootout winner.
Definitely deserved it. Yes. Unfortunately, they don't register that, but like, Joseph Woll has been as advertised, and he's been so good.
More than advertised, I think.
Like, he's been really good.
Especially these last 2 games.
Yes.
Like, I don't think, like, honestly, like, I thought it was a pretty even game overall, but when the Kraken got the 3-3 tie, I thought they controlled play pretty hardcore after that. Like, and McCann had a really good chance right after they scored the 3-3 goal, where he made a good pass to Eberle for a chance in tight, and then they just controlled like all of OT essentially. If we didn't have Woll, I think we would be 0 points out of 4.
Yarncroke had that opportunity like with 1 minute to go, and like you got to give it to the fans that were in the building tonight. With like a minute left, everybody was standing, everybody was stoked. We all thought that if Mitch wasn't going to get a goal, someone else was, because it felt like they had that momentum. And unfortunately, it doesn't carry over into overtime. Basically, for the first 2.5 minutes, the Leafs are just hemmed in their own zone, like a couple of little fishies in their little beta pond over and over again. And I was, as time went on, I was like, is this seriously going to go to a shootout, guys? Like, I know it's almost Friday, but come on. And then, it goes to the shootout. William Nylander, I love you. You're not doing so good in the shootout.
0 for 5 on the season. He's a great player, but his shootout game is not as good. And it's kind of weird because he has like such a unstoppable move in OT when he gets past a defender, and it just doesn't translate that well to the shootout. But the shootout's barely hockey anyways. So.
Yeah, there's no shootout in the playoffs, right? Thank goodness.
Exactly.
And Austin Matthews scores, and Mitch Marner to seal the game. The Leafs win it 4-3 in the shootout. My frickin' goodness. By the skin of their teeth. I actually, for those of you that don't know, I have a secret love for the Seattle Kraken. They're my West Coast team. I was considering putting the jersey up, but then it went to shootout and they almost won. So I love them, except when they're playing the Leafs, and then I have to be a Leafs fan. But I have like my inaugural season patch that I got to put on my jersey still and everything. But yeah, the Kraken haven't been playing super well this year. Unfortunately for me, but it was a pretty good hockey game. Like it was a great hockey game. It was more stressful than I wanted it to be in the third quarter or in the third period, but it was a good hockey game. Even though it went to the shootout and it's not real hockey, I digress. It was still a good game, and
never dull.
First star goes to Mitch Marner. Second star goes to Leafs legend Joseph Woll, and third star goes to
Leafs legend Jared McCann.
So let's you and I together, and let's all as friends jump down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Jared McCann, the greatest Leaf that there never was.
Do you remember who we traded to get Jared McCann?
Was it Evan Rodriguez?
No. Did we get Evan Rodriguez in that deal? Hold on, let me look it up. It was a Philip Hallander and a 7th.
Okay.
7th round pick.
Right.
For Jared McCann.
40 goal scorer Jared McCann.
Fuck. We left him exposed, and him and Kerfoot exposed to keep our very favorite defenseman,
number 3,
Justin Holl. Now, at the time, I will admit, I wasn't that mad. Now, I liked Jared McCann's game. I liked it a lot. But as Leaf fans, I think we were clamoring for good defensemen, as every team does. And Justin Holl's a right D on a really good contract at the time, with only $2 million. I understood why we did that. Now, with that being said, Jared McCann had a good contract as well. I think he was getting paid $3 million. For that last year, and then he was an RFA, so they retained rights. He was good before this. I think a lot of people knew that he was good before he became a 40 goal scorer. Like, everyone knew he had a great shot. He had great underlying numbers. He was a good offensive.
All the evidence was there, Your Honor.
A really good offensive winger. And now, where the Leafs are, and where they were last season, and we're looking and we're searching for that secondary scoring that's not in the top four. Like, and we get guys like Tyler Bertuzzi to fill that hole. We get guys like Max Domi, who still hasn't scored, by the way, to fill that hole. And we had him, and we gave him up for Justin fucking Hall.
Is that the Leafs like worst decision? Like from a management player dealership kind of way? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that the worst call in terms of contracts that the Leafs have made in the last, I don't know, 5 years?
It's tough to say.
It's got to be up there, right? In terms of like managerial and player management decisions, like that with hindsight, like at the time, it really was a crapshoot. We thought that they were kind of even keeled, maybe not in terms of like point production, but we thought that Kerfoot and McCann were more closely related and similar as players than it turns out that they were. Right? Like,
yeah. Well, I always thought like if we were to keep one of them, I think McCann would be kept over Kerfoot. I think it came down to, do we want to keep a forward versus a D? And they chose defenseman. And, you know, to be fair, if we lost Hall, we would have had to replace him. We didn't have anyone internally to step up at that point on the Marlies. And we would have had to look at the market. And I think that year was the year that like guys like Goodbranson got 4x4 deals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like defensemen are, generally speaking, a little overpaid for what you're getting, especially right shot D. There's an inflated market there. So I understand to some degree a cap strap team saying, hey, we have a very good, or not a very good, a respectable right-handed defenseman who can play top 4 minutes for $2 million. We cannot lose that. I understand that. But it has not worked out in any way, shape, or form. Like, Justin Hall became a whipping boy the very next year, and he's off to Detroit for like $3.4 million. And Jared McCann is a 40-goal scorer. He's got an insanely high shooting percentage, and that's not just luck. He's an incredible shot. He would be so dynamite with a guy like Mitch Marner. He would be so good as a complementary winger with guys who are so elite at play driving, you know, to get him open looks. And
like all we're doing is
solve so many problems.
Like, we're just playing like knife roulette with our hands, thinking about these things, because all we're doing is causing ourselves pain. And for the people that are like, oh, the Rask Raycroft trade, I literally said in the last 5 years, like in terms of player management in the last 5 years and decisions on who we resign and who we don't. I think
the one is maybe Kadri Barry, and that might be
right, but
like as bad. Just because Barry just really didn't work out. And it's funny, Kerfoot was involved in both of those bad managerial decisions, but but you know,
like two players that ended up becoming overused and overutilized in situations they shouldn't have been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's another thing. Like, Keefe, I think, did really trust Kerfoot and Hall.
Right.
And there's something to speak about how, you know, Nick Robertson and Max Domi have a shorter leash than guys like David Kampf right now, even though they're probably more skilled players. When you give a little defensively, like, you know, coaches don't want to be risky. They don't want to make risky moves, and especially defensively, you want to be solid. So I understand the value of Kerfoot and somewhat Hall
on paper.
But yeah, it's just like, you know, when we're looking at it now, it's just like the secondary scoring is one of our biggest problems over the past year and a half, 2 years. And that was right at the point where we could have solved it ahead of time. And it's just a little sad that we see McCann thriving as much as he is. It's insane. It's honestly insane. I didn't even expect him to be a 40-goal scorer. So I'm not even.
I don't think any of us did.
Hindsight's 2020, but
that's
Jesus
exactly
Christ,
right.
Man.
Right. It's easy for us to sit here now at the beginning of December 2023 and say, "Oh, the Leafs should have made a different decision 4.5 years ago." Like, anybody could do that, right? Like, if I had made different decisions 10 years ago, I would have invested $100 in Bitcoin, and then, you know, I would have different problems in life. And it's to look back at decisions that were made, even though we're talking about it, I feel like we all needed to just get out and vent about it. Please vent your comments in the chat. Don't be mean to each other, but feel free to express your rage and express your frustration in the fact that isn't he currently like the highest goal scorer on the Kraken, like, in its history now. Like, he's like,
oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he was their highest goal scorer last year, so
right, and
they've only had like 3 years. So
yeah, and this year, like, he's on pace to score a whole bunch. Like, he's already scored,
yeah,
you know,
he's got a
10
9
goals.
and
He's at
23,
he's at like 11 goals now after tonight.
yeah, 11 goals after tonight. Yeah.
And so it's easy to look back and say, oh, well, what if we had kept him? Like, why don't we do that with Barbashev or Barabanov too while we're at it, right? Like, we have to talk about it, but at the same time, like, there's a chance that if he stayed on the Leafs, he wouldn't have had the opportunities that he had. He wouldn't have had the ice time, and maybe he never even goes past 30 goals.
And let's be real, he broke out after signing the $5 million deal.
Yeah, the extension.
Like, yeah, so there's a bit of luck involved there. Like, if he broke out before that $5 million deal, we probably wouldn't even be able to keep him.
We couldn't say his name.
If he stayed in the Leafs, and then he scored like 30 goals in his first year, and then he asked for $6.5 million.
Yeah,
we're not keeping him. We can't. No. We don't have the money for it. So, you know, I understand why it was done, but it just hurts now.
Yeah, it's like driving away and seeing someone in the rearview mirror that you don't want to leave at the airport, but you're like, you have to go. I'm sorry.
Brutal. So another thing is the Leafs still only have 5 regulation wins in 21 games.
Yep.
Which is an insane stat, especially considering I think they have 12 wins total, which means they've won more in outside of regulation than in regulation. And I'm curious what the record is on that in terms of like OT/shootout wins in a season, because we're definitely crushing that pace.
Especially this early. Because it feels, and I don't even want to say this out loud in case like the hockey gods are secretly listening to SDPN. If the Flames last year, if the overtimes go the other way for the Flames last year, because last year the Flames couldn't win an overtime or the shootout to save their lives. If it goes the other way, then they're where the Leafs are right now.
Yeah.
And it went the other way for the Flames. And they had a terrible year last year. R.I.P. Peter and Audie. And this year they still haven't recovered. And it is highly unnerving, at least to me, for the Leafs to be tap dancing on the precipice of this tightrope of falling off this awful cliff, because I'm really glad that they've pulled out those wins and they have the points, and it doesn't matter how. It will.
It does matter how.
It will. Yeah.
Like, it might not matter on, how many points we have at the end of the season, but it sure as hell matters for the playoffs in how we play there. Process-driven hockey, like, you need to have a good process. And we've literally gone to OT, I think, 10 times out of 21 games so far this season. That's a good thing in some ways. Like, we fought back every time we're down. So, hooray, congratulations to us. But they don't know how to win in regulation, which is scary, man. They need to learn how to close out games, because OT, 3-on-3 overtime in the shootout doesn't exist. It does not exist in the playoffs. You don't get that much space. You don't get that much time. You don't have a one-on-one with the goalie.
No.
It'll never happen. So figure out how to win when things get tight, when you don't have that much space. Figure out how to close out games, because it's just like the results are wild. 5 regulation wins. That's it in 21 games.
Armaan.
We're at like the bottom of the league there.
Nick Archerry in the chat said less regulation wins than too many men penalties, and I feel personally.
Like, I feel attacked. It's not even close. It's not even like one off. We have 5 regulation wins and like 8 or something like that too many men penalties.
You know what it feels like?
That's
it feels
insanity.
like we need to have a whiteboard of like days since last too many men penalties. We got like a little whiteboard.
It's honestly like, it blows my mind how much we go to overtime. And to be fair, like 10 times out of 21 games we've gone to overtime, and I think we've won something like probably 7 I think of those. Yeah. Which is a really good rate.
Yep. It's also not sustainable.
That's not hockey. Yeah, that's just not how playoff hockey is, obviously. Because it's a different format. And that's not how like regular hockey. You don't get like, we're winning because of the skill we have. And they have the opportunity and the time and space and overtime to showcase that skill, or in the shootout.
Yeah.
And it's just not there in regulation. And you need to figure out a way, if you want to be a good playoff team, to
play better at 5-on-5
defensively, play better at 5-on-5, because the 5-on-5 numbers are not good in terms of results, but also not good in terms of process. Like their expected goals,
not good.
they're barely like even, I think.
Yeah.
Like at 50%, which is, you're not in the crop of teams that we consider elite.
No.
Like Vegas and Colorado and those teams that we consider Stanley Cup favorites are just in a completely different tier than us at 5-on-5 play right now.
Yeah.
And we need to figure it out, because it's so concerning that night in and night out, we're in these wild games that go back and forth, that end up in overtime, and then we win by the skin of our teeth, in pretty much a 1-goal game consistently.
Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sick of the late night overnight penalties. Or the late night overnight shootout. Also, can we just appreciate, I know this is really unprofessional, can we just appreciate Mitch Marner?
Yeah, Mitch Marner.
With the bubble on? Come on, let's go.
He is very deserving of the belt tonight.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm actually just going to look up, because chat, if you want to get your questions in, we're going to answer them in just a minute. Let's really briefly talk about the Zadorov trade from the Flames to the Canucks for a 2024 fifth and a 2024 sixth.
2026
third rounder. Yeah. That's quite a mouthful. Not the price tag that we were expecting. However, obviously with no retention, it changes the cost. So it sounds like, by all accounts, the Leafs were in on a trade, but because they were going to need some retention, the Flames opted to save their money and get picks instead, landing him in a Canucks sweater. The game over on Saturday night, the head-to-head between the Canucks and the Flames, is going to be magical.
Yeah, they got their crossover game on Saturday, so that'll be a fun game over stream for them. I think it's an underwhelming return for the Flames, and I would have thought the Leafs could have at least met, or really, I think all they would need to do is meet that value, because I'm sure the Flames didn't want to trade him to a divisional rival. Yeah. When they're trying to compete for a playoff spot, they don't want the Canucks to get better. Yeah. Especially when they're not getting any roster players back. So, it's surprising to me, because the third rounder is in 2026, which is a long ways away. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty low value, all things considered. And I was talking to Harnish about it too, and I brought up cap retention and how we probably needed them to retain cap, but then he brought up that Klingberg is on LTIR, and he might not even play this season, and that's $4 million in LTIR. And now, obviously, we don't know what's going on with Klingberg, and he may play, but it's sort of just up in the air. But it was surprising to me that that would be such a, the thing that stops the show for us in terms of the retention there. I know we're up against the cap, but I think we have a little more room to maneuver this with Klingberg's LTIR space. But also, Brad Treliving has seen Zadorov play a hell of a lot. I know we're also in on Tanev, so we don't know what's going on on that front. Maybe we're trying to utilize that cap, the cap for Tanev. But it's interesting, because, we have Treliving has said that they are looking at a trade for a defenseman, and it's completely separate from the injury troubles that we've had. And Giordano's out now too for a week to week with a broken finger as well now. But separate to that, we were anyways looking. So to see a defenseman that we were in on go for such little value it's interesting. But also, I don't know much about Zadorov. His numbers are weird, though. Have you seen his expected goals versus?
Yes. So I don't remember who I was talking to about it, but I'm low-key glad that we didn't get Zadorov, because everything that I've seen online tells me that he does make these really nice open ice hits. On occasion, he is sound defensively, but that he makes Jake Gardiner level errors, and that it often affects gameplay. So I would rather get a TJ Brody type defenseman, and I know that those don't grow on trees, but I don't need someone that's going to go and cave someone's face in off the wall. Like, don't get me wrong, it would be nice to have Adam Fox or Jacob Trouba, but it's not in the cards. I would rather have a player. I actually feel like at this point I would rather trade for a defenseman from another team than Calgary. Like, I would rather trade with the Columbus, or I would rather trade no longer with Philly, because that's no longer on the table because they're doing well. Maybe you make a trade with the Oilers because they need some offense, or you make a trade.
I don't want any of the Oilers D-men.
Not the Oilers, the Islanders. Sorry, they wear the same colors.
I don't want CC back on.
No! Oh God, no.
But yeah, like, I agree with you. Like, his numbers sort of reminded me of what Hall looked like, where his advanced stats were pretty solid. Like, he's like a 54% expected goals guy on, like, not offensive minutes. Like, he's getting pretty defensive minutes. But then you look at his, like, actual goals percentage, and it's like 36.7 or something like that, where, it's not good. And then I remember I talked to, I think it was Peter from Game Over Toronto about it, and I was just like, what is that? Like, is that just unluckiness? And then, we were talking about it, and yeah, he said he makes some boneheaded moves, and if you're good 80% of the time on the ice, but that 20% of the time you're not good, it ends up in the back of your net.
Yeah.
When you make a really dumb decision.
Yeah.
That would probably be a little frustrating.
Yep.
Now, I don't think he's a bad defenseman.
No.
I think he's like a 5 to 6 guy, like give him
doesn't
some
move the
sheltered
meter.
Minutes. Yeah, but doesn't move the meter. Obviously, like, the physicality there is amazing.
Sure.
Like, he makes some crushing hits, which I'm sure the Leafs fans would love.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty
Big
passionate
dude.
personality as well, in terms of his comments, which I'm sure the Leafs fans would love as well, to show some drive there. But yeah, the results are interesting to me. So I'm curious how he does with the Canucks. He's been in the Western Conference his entire career, so I don't have a ton of chances to see him play.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not too sad that we didn't get him.
No.
After seeing
I'm not
his
heartbroken.
numbers, I'm not heartbroken.
Yep.
But I am surprised that he went for that low. I thought he would have commanded a little more as a return.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I'm glad. I'm sad that the Leafs didn't make a trade yet. Actually, one of the questions from Nick in the chat is the pressure on the Leafs even more now to get their blue line sorted out trade-wise. I think so. I think the timer has been ticking since the beginning of the season, and I think with the injuries that we've had, I think that someone has probably twisted the egg timer and it's a little bit close to midnight. I think that the pressure is always on the Leafs, but I also think that if you make a quick trade as a knee-jerk reaction, then it's probably a bad trade. I would rather you wait.
It won't work out for you.
I would rather wait another couple weeks, see if the Leafs can make any changes, see if the Liljegren comes back. There's another question. Icarus above. Heard anything about Liljegren lately? I believe he skated yesterday, but Keefe said that he is nowhere close to returning.
Yeah.
So both good and bad. So it sounds like he's a ways away, but I also don't know if he's the answer.
Yeah, well, Liljegren also has great numbers, but he's also someone who I think is prone to making, the big mistake.
This is going to be controversial. I wouldn't be against seeing him go the other way in an exchange.
I don't know. I'm high on Liljegren. I really like his transitional game. Like, I think he has holes in his game. I think that's fair to say, and I think he does make the occasional really not great play that ends up in the back of the net. But overall, I think he's very much a positive asset. But with that being said, 3 of our top 6 D-men are out long-term right now. Yeah. So obviously, I think that adds pressure to the Leafs. A guy that I know we are in on, because Kevin Weeks reported this as well, is Tanev from the Flames. I really like Tanev. He's on the wrong side of 30, and he's got a lot of wear and tear on him.
What's that supposed to mean? It was my birthday this week. Just kidding. Sorry, I had to. It was sitting on the goal line. I had to push it in.
But yeah, he's got a lot of wear and tear on him. So I don't know in terms of how he plays now, but his numbers are still pretty solid. He's a great defenseman. He was a really good defenseman in the past as well. So he's someone I have a lot of interest in. So I'm curious to see if we can get something done with Calgary there.
It would certainly be interesting. It would certainly be interesting. Luke, frequent flyer in Game Over. Welcome back, Luke. Question. Everyone has been talking about getting a D-man. You said damn, but I know you meant D-man. But is that the only trade they need? What other pieces is the team missing? I think that that's where the conversation starts, is probably with a D-man. I think that if you go further into the season and Ilya Samsonov isn't able to be the Ilya Samsonov that we know he can be, and if you have Joseph Woll as your starter and you don't have confidence in a backup, then maybe something needs to happen, because we no longer have Michael Hutchinson as our third goalie. Now, having said that, I believe that like Dryden McKay and Keith Petruzzelli,
I think Martin Jones
and
is
Martin
also,
Jones. Oh yeah, the Martin Jones is our third. That's right.
and Dennis Hildeby. Yeah,
right.
Martin Jones I think would be our three.
Right. Yeah, Martin Jones is the third, and then Hildeby is fourth. And Hildeby, I believe, is the guy that's like 6'8".
He's a tall boy. Yeah,
so,
and he's been pretty solid in the AHL from what I've seen as well. So,
but I don't know that you could like. I don't think a goalie trade is necessary, because we do have Martin Jones. I did forget that he existed because he hasn't played a game as a Leaf yet, not in the regular season anyway. I think the conversation starts with at least like a top 4 defenseman somewhere there, maybe, and then you have to try and figure out something with the bottom 6. Now, having said that, there's no opportunity because you signed Ryan Reeves to a 3-year contract, and I don't know that he's going to want to go anywhere now.
Well, that's fine. Like, waive him if he wants to go somewhere. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't need to do what he says, really. Like, his contract is mostly variable, so I'm not too worried about Ryan Reeves, other than maybe pissing him off, but who cares? The bottom 6, I think, is actually pretty solid right now. I don't have an issue with our forward group as much anymore. I want to see Domi obviously score a goal. Right. You know, we're 21 games into the season and he still hasn't scored. He's had a few chances. It just hasn't gone in for him. But I like that line. I like the Domi-Robertson chemistry. I think the moment Robertson stepped on the ice, Domi elevated his game quite a bit. And, you know, you see Domi and he's a very skilled passer. And you see Nick Robertson and he's a very skilled shooter. It's sort of like a match made in heaven. But they're 2 small guys who probably don't play as much defensive minutes as Keefe would like in the bottom 6 in terms of how much he trusts his bottom 6 to play defensively.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think you take the good with the bad there. I think having that secondary scoring option is what we want, especially when we have guys like Matthews and Marner and our elite players who you can trust defensively, who can take on the best matchups on the opposing team and still succeed.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think we need to go out and get a purely defensive bottom 6 like we have done in the past.
No, I don't think we need David Kampf 2.0. We have one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't mind. What I'm saying is I wouldn't necessarily mind like more scoring in the bottom. I wouldn't mind trying to swing the pendulum the other way and like see if we could establish a shutdown line, because that's where David Kampf plays best. He, like, don't get me wrong, he is no what's his name over? He played on the Canadiens and then he got traded to the Kings. Danault, yes. He is no Philip Danault, but he is the closest thing that the Leafs have had to a forward that plays that kind of role in a long time. I wouldn't mind having a 4th line that's more of a shutdown role, because that's where he succeeds. If you have someone that has some offensive upswing with good defense, with David Kampf, and if you're able to trade for someone, or maybe Bobby McCann can suddenly play really well defensively. I know. Listen, it was difficult. It was difficult writing McCabe trips McCann, and then McMahon was also on the ice. Okay, like there was a lot going on. If Bobby McMahon is able to play a little bit more defensive, then maybe you can make a shutdown line that can roll over onto the first line of the other team. That if I could like wave a magic wand, we have a shutdown line again like we did last year. The problem is I wasn't willing to pay, Pierre Engvall $4 million for the next 7 years to keep him to be a giant 7-foot tall giraffe pylon. Yes. Yeah, $28 million. Congratulations, Pierre Engvall. I hope you enjoy Long Island, because you're never being traded with that bucket of a contract. My freaking goodness. Is there any more questions in the chat that we would like to get to? Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, I think so
I
too.
would like the Leafs to get a regulation win next.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, if we could do that. When do they play next? Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Okay. Well, if they could do that Saturday, that would be great. I think I'm on that show.
I believe you are.
Interesting. Did I screen cap it? I did. I'm a smart panda. Yes, it is Fuad and I against the Bruins on Saturday. It's going to be a good show. The Bruins is always a tough watch. It'll be interesting to see who starts on Saturday. I think that Joseph Woll probably deserves another game just because he's been playing so well.
But I think you leave him.
Yeah, but I also don't really want to see him shelled. So I guess we will find out. I'm sure there will be a morning skate tomorrow, and we'll get some information. Hopefully, we can get some information. They were expecting some answers about John Klingberg and all of that by the weekend. So hopefully, we get some of those answers for you. If we do get those answers, we will certainly talk about it on Saturday. But for now, thank you for watching Game Over. It has been a joy having you here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening in the morning or on your way to or from work on Friday, I hope you have a good weekend. I hope you are all able to come back on Saturday. It was so good to see you. I haven't been on for a week and a half, and it was good to be back. So for Game Over, my name is Lauren. You can find me on Twitter, X, at Lauren6. Armaan?
And you can find me at Armaan Punthiki on Twitter /X.
Absolutely. And please make sure you do go check out the other chats tonight. I believe there's Edmonton and Winnipeg game over head-to-head tonight. And is Winnipeg still winning? I haven't checked the score in ages.
Edmonton won.
Wow. Okay.
3 goals in the third period.
Nice.
So that'll be a fun
well,
one.
Then please go check out Game Over Edmonton and Winnipeg. And you can go watch Brady's head explode. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you Saturday.